Ms. Moreland?
My name is Patricia Moreland, and I want to start out by saying I am not an environmentalist, and I am not an oil or gas company employee or lobbyist, and I am not associated with any alternative energy industry. I'm an average citizen who pays utility bills and lives an average life. All my friends work and some own businesses. We are struggling to make ends meet in a recession. We know the legislature will be passing anywhere from $180 to $310 million of new taxes, and the federal government is set to pass new taxes as well. No one has spoken so far today, seems to be concerned about the economic burden a cap on greenhouse gas emissions will place on the people of New Mexico today in the middle of a recession. A cap on greenhouse gases will cost jobs and increase utility bills at a time when we can least afford it. Am I against alternative energy sources? No. I believe we need to use all forms of energy. We do not need to put more economic burdens on the people of New Mexico in the middle of a recession. We do not need to chase jobs out of the state in the middle of a recession. And we do not need new regulations imposed on this state at this time. Many people talked about the future. I am concerned about the future as well. We face many challenges, and those challenges are coming from China. China is using coal-powered electricity to create wind turbines, much cheaper than we do here in the United States. If we restrict ourselves and say that we cannot use any coal-fired fossil fuels, we are hurting our economy, not only our state economy, but our national economy. We need to use all forms of energy. When we talked a lot about the poor. We also need to look at the working poor. Passing this type of cap on emissions is going to hurt them specifically. They are barely making it as it is. There was a survey done, I believe, by the University of New Mexico that said 40% of the people in New Mexico have to decide whether they can pay their utility bills or eat. This cap on emissions will surely make sure that they cannot pay their utility bills. We do not need this at a time in the middle of a recession. That's what I have to say.
All right, Ms. Bacon.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Elizabeth Bacon, and I have lived in Albuquerque since 1969. I actually live in Dallas now. I've heard a lot of emotion this morning, not a lot of fact. I oppose this legislation. It's not realistic. This bill will hurt the poor tremendously. All, of course, except the special interest groups and industries who will profit, even as the state is sucked dry of money. All products brought into New Mexico will be subject to a carbon credit tax. This won't just discourage suppliers and truckers, it will hurt the poor because they will see higher food costs at the grocery stores. All business will suffer, and although initially it will bring in revenue to the state, it will lose revenue as people lose jobs and industry dies. Business will leave the state. We're in a severe recession. This will make it worse. Global warming is based on bad science. A discovery program I watched just days ago showed that according to scientific findings, we are sliding into a global cooling because since 2001, the sunspots are disappearing that cause warmer weather. The change would not be instantaneous to the Earth as it takes a while to reach us. CO2 has been labeled as bad. We need CO2 to live. This so-called greenhouse gas supplies what our produce needs to grow. New Mexico contributes a negligible amount of emissions to the air. We are more sparsely populated than most states, and there's less industry. I believe in being a responsible consumer, recycling and using clean energy also. But the people who spoke this morning were speaking on a global and national level, yet they want New Mexico, who is not a wealthy state, to sustain this. CO2 is not our problem. It does help plants to grow. We must learn to live all together and allow people to live. Where will everyone go when we have to make our carbon footprint so small, the only thing left to do is leave. My mother lived in the South Valley and had a well she couldn't use because of the arsenic in the water. The arsenic was naturally occurring. The answer to that was filtering or bottled water. This was 40 years ago. I suspect this will initially raise money for the state, but it will fall as the people leave. The state is already on the verge of bankruptcy. Others also stand to gain, but as I said, how can we afford this? How can the people in New Mexico afford this? How many people even pay taxes in the state? With a population of 2 million people and a burgeoning budget, who will have the money to sustain it?
Ms. Bacon?
Okay.
Thanks. Is that it? Thank you. Jim Furlan?
My name is Paul Gesson. I'm president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's only free market think tank. That's GESSING. And my wife and I had our first child 1 month ago, so I care about the future every bit as much as the folks who presented this morning. Chairman and members of the Environmental Improvement Board, I'm here to comment in opposition to the proposed regulations. But my concerns relate to the integrity of the process. Impartiality and fairness are paramount in considering this rule, as your final decision will impact jobs, our children's futures, and the environment. Citizens of New Mexico have a right to have this measure judged by a panel that is in fact fair and impartial and does not prejudge any aspect of this matter. Unfortunately, there is more than a reasonable basis to question the objectivity and fairness of some members of this board. I will address these issues in outline form and wish to submit some documents for the record that contain more detail as to why Mr. Green, Ms. Dillingham, and Mr. Gollin should recuse themselves. The first concern is the reason to question the impartiality of Board Chair Mr. Green. 4 of the parties in this matter have hired Mr. Green as their lobbyist through the Coalition for Green Affordable Energy. The Coalition for Green Affordable Energy has received over $100,000 from New Energy Economy, the lead petition in this case. Mr. Green is the public New Mexico spokesman for the Pew Environmental Group and has publicly advocated their view that mankind is causing global warming and emissions caps will have a beneficial impact on New Mexico's economy. Issue 2 surrounds Dillingham and Gollin. Mr. Gollin is president of Rainforest Action Network, which advocates for public policies based on the theory mankind is causing global warming and that extreme measures must be taken to cut CO2 emissions.
Mr. Gesson?
Dillingham is director of New Voice for Business. Both organizations belong to an alliance that includes New Energy Economy. That coalition, called One Sky, lobbies for the same cap on carbon emissions as the one requested by New Energy Economy. New Energy Economy has given approximately $100,000 for One Sky. There is thus a reasonable basis to question the impartiality and fairness of both Gollin and Dillingham in this matter. Under a rule of New Mexico Administrative Code 20-20.1.1.111, no board member shall participate in any action which his or her impartiality or fairness may reasonably be questioned, and that the member shall recuse themselves in such an action, giving notice to the board and the general public by announcing this recusal on the record.